There is a federally mandated consumer protection that permanently stops identity thieves from opening credit cards, bank accounts, car loans, personal loans, or any other financial account in your name. It does not cost $1. It does not require an attorney. It does not require you to file a complaint, prove you have been victimized, or demonstrate any history of fraud. Any American consumer can request it at any time, for any reason, at no charge, and within one business day, the 3 major credit bureaus are legally required to implement it. The protection is called a credit freeze. The formal legal mechanism is codified in Section 605A of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, added by the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act of 2018. And the identity theft industry, which generates an estimated $163 billion in annual losses, according to AARP, has exactly one pathway through which it can open fraudulent accounts in your name. A credit freeze eliminates that pathway entirely. And when a lender, a credit card company, a landlord, or any entity that extends credit queries your credit report to evaluate an application, they send a request to one or more of the 3 major credit bureaus. Without a freeze, the bureau sends the report and the lender processes the application. With a freeze in place, the bureau sends nothing. It returns a notification that the consumer's file is frozen and cannot be released. The application goes nowhere. The fraudulent account cannot be opened, not because the identity thief was caught, not because the lender was suspicious, simply because the infrastructure of credit access was switched off at the source, and the Bureau cannot legally release your report regardless of how complete or convincing the fraudulent application appears. Welcome to the Invisible Ledger. If these stories matter to you, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we trace the money they told you not to follow. Credit reporting and the infrastructure for extending credit based on that reporting developed in America through the second half of the 20th century. The first major credit bureaus emerged in the 1960s and 1970s as department stores, banks, and lenders recognized the value of sharing consumer payment information. The Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1970 provided the first federal regulatory framework for this system, establishing consumer rights to access their reports and dispute inaccurate information. But the FCRA did not originally include a freeze mechanism. In the early decades of credit reporting, identity theft was relatively rare because exploiting a stolen identity required significant operational infrastructure and physical presence. You could not open a credit card account from across the country with a stolen social security number. You had to appear in person, produce documents, and interact with a local banker who might know you or your neighbors. The internet changed everything. By the mid-1990s, the entire credit application process had migrated online. A stolen social security number, a date of birth, and an address could be used to apply for credit from anywhere in the world in minutes with no human interaction. Identity theft exploded. The Federal Trade Commission began tracking identity theft complaints in 1999 and received under 100,000 complaints in the first year. By 2003, the number had grown to over 500,000. By 2021, following the COVID pandemic's acceleration of digital transactions and data breaches, the FTC received 1.4 million identity theft reports in a single year. The Equifax breach of 2017, which exposed the personal information of approximately 147 million Americans, demonstrated that the infrastructure of credit reporting itself could be weaponized against the consumers it was supposed to serve. Individual states began passing credit freeze laws in the early 2000s in response to legislative pressure from consumer advocates. California passed the first state credit freeze law in 2003. Other states followed, but the patchwork of state laws created inconsistency. Some states charged fees for freezes. Some restricted freeze access to identity theft victims. Some required complicated procedures to temporarily lift the freeze, called a thaw, when the consumer wanted to apply for credit legitimately. The Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, Consumer Protection Act of 2018, signed by President Trump in May of that year, established a uniform federal framework. It made credit freezes free for all consumers at all 3 major bureaus, eliminated the identity theft victim requirement, streamlined the thaw process, and required bureaus to implement freezes within 1 business day of receiving a request. Before I go further, this video is just the surface. Inside the Invisible Ledger Vault, you will find the complete credit freeze implementation guide for all 5 major consumer reporting agencies, including ChexSystems and Innovis, the temporary thaw procedure guide for when you need to apply for credit, the minor child freeze protection guide, and the supplemental fraud alert comparison showing when each tool is appropriate. The link is in the description. But stay right here. The credit freeze operates simultaneously at the level of the 3 major bureaus. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion must each be contacted separately. A freeze at one bureau does not automatically freeze the others. Because different lenders query different bureaus, a freeze at only 1 or 2 bureaus leaves gaps that an identity thief can potentially exploit. All 3 must be frozen to create a comprehensive barrier. The 2018 federal law also covers the 2 additional specialty consumer reporting agencies that many people overlook. You should also place freezes with ChexSystems, which covers bank account applications, and with Innovis, a 4th major credit bureau used by some lenders. The NCTUE database, maintained by TransUnion for utility companies, is another specialty agency worth contacting. The mechanics of implementing a freeze are straightforward. Each of the 3 major bureaus provides an online freeze portal, a phone number, and a mail option. Online is the fastest. At Equifax, the freeze is managed at Equifax. Com personal par credit report services. At Experian. Com freeze center. HTML. At TransUnion. Com credit freeze. Each bureau will ask you to create an account or verify your identity using your social security number, date of birth, and address history. You will receive a PIN or account credentials that you will need to use when you want to temporarily lift the freeze. When you want to apply for credit legitimately, such as when shopping for a mortgage, a car loan, or a new credit card, you temporarily thaw the freeze. You can thaw for a specific creditor, for a specific time window, or permanently. The 2018 law requires bureaus to implement thaws within 1 hour of receiving an electronic request. This means the inconvenience of a temporary thaw when you legitimately need credit is measured in minutes, not days. The FTC reports that identity theft cost American consumers a total of $8.8 billion in losses in 2022. The Social Security Administration Inspector General estimated that Social Security number misuse, a primary enabler of identity theft, costs billions annually in fraudulent benefit claims and credit exploitation. Every data breach, every compromised database, every phishing email represents a potential credential theft that can become a fraudulent credit application. The credit freeze is the only mechanism that breaks the chain between stolen credentials and successful fraud at the credit application stage. If you have made it this far, you understand the credit freeze at a level that most identity theft victims wish they had understood before the first fraudulent account was opened. Subscribe and share this video. Here are the exact steps. Step 1. Go to Equifax. Com and navigate to the credit freeze section. Create an account and request a freeze. You will need your social security number, date of birth, and current and recent address history. Step 2. Go to Experian. Com and repeat the process at their freeze center. Step 3. Go to TransUnion. Com and complete the freeze there. Step 4. Go to the ChexSystems Consumer Center at Consumer Debit. Com and request a security freeze on your banking history file. Step 5. Contact Innovis at Innovis personal security freeze and request a freeze there as well. Step 6. Store your freeze pins and account credentials in a secure location. A password manager or encrypted document is appropriate. You will need these credentials to thaw the freeze when you legitimately apply for credit. Total cost of implementing all 5 freezes, $0. Total time required, approximately 30 to 60 minutes. Total protection against new account identity theft, comprehensive, provided you freeze all 5 agencies and maintain your credentials securely. I need to be honest with you. A credit freeze is powerful, but not an all-encompassing identity protection solution. First, a credit freeze does not protect accounts that already exist. If a thief has access to your existing bank account credentials, credit card numbers, or online account passwords, a credit freeze does nothing to prevent fraud on existing accounts. Account monitoring and strong password hygiene remain essential. Second, a credit freeze does not prevent all identity theft. Medical identity theft, tax identity theft, and government benefit fraud use your identity without going through the credit application process, and therefore are not stopped by a credit freeze. Third, every time you legitimately apply for credit, you must remember to thaw and refreeze your reports. If you forget to refreeze after a thaw, your protection is temporarily down. Fourth, the freeze only covers the bureaus you freeze. If you freeze 3 of 5 relevant agencies and a lender uses one of the 2 you skipped, a fraudulent application at that lender could succeed. Freeze all 5. And fifth, the implementation process requires accurate personal information verification. If your name, address history, or social security number does not match bureau records, the online process may fail, and you may need to complete verification by mail with identity documentation, which takes longer. Your grandparents did not have social security numbers until 1936, and those numbers were not widely used as general identity identifiers for another 2 decades. For the first century of American credit, your identity was your face, your community, and your reputation. Then, one generation built a financial system that reduced identity to a 9-digit number and a date of birth, and then digitized access to that number so comprehensively that it became a commodity available on criminal markets for a few dollars. There was not a more personal system. There was just one that was slower to exploit. The credit freeze does not make the number sacred again. It simply turns off the infrastructure that makes stealing it profitable. Subscribe and share this video. Every share freezes one more report before the next data breach. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside will show you how to take the retirement fund that Wall Street has been managing for you and use it to buy real estate, gold, and private businesses that your brokerage account was specifically designed to prevent you from accessing. Gesetz.